So as I always promise, whenever we have folks on here, it's going to be in different industries, different levels of success, different type of entrepreneurs, but there's always a common denominator, and success leaves clues, and it's intentionality, it's purpose, and yes, it's mission driven. And if you have a why that, at least for me, it makes you cry, then you know that you're helping the world make a better place by helping kids achieve goals and have outcomes that in their wildest dreams, even in their parents' dreams, may not have had happened. With me today, I have Coach Nick Marinello.
Good to see you.
What's up, Coach? How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Listen, we're talking about 450 wins as a high school basketball coach.
Yes.
We're talking about multiple state championships and county championships with multiple schools in the great state of New Jersey, by the way, which is a very, very difficult place to win basketball games consistently. We're talking about now at Hudson Catholic where, you're the director of athletics and facilities, right? Is that the exact title? And the head basketball coach, which means not only does he win state championships, I mean, we could go to the Hudson County, New Jersey, from 2013 straight through to 2018, but the school itself has won 13 county championships in all the different sports that they have. So to me, success leaves clues, and there's no better success track than when you can look back, connect the dots, and see proven winners and see the kids that you've impacted along the way. Right. So when we talk about in 2000, I want to say 2007 and 8, you were one of the national coaches of the year, correct?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Tri-state area coach of the year.
Yes.
You were in the tournament in New Jersey. They no longer have it, but not only do we have state champions between the parochials and the groups, but then there's a thing after that called the Tournament of Champions, which you take the 6 best schools and then they go at it. And they had done it for like 27 straight years. They just ended it, but you made it to the finals, the first Group 1 school to ever make it to the finals.
Right, twice.
You made it twice?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
Wow. So incredible. How many kids have you had from both schools get scholarships, Division II, Division I?
Probably about 75.
75 kids have played college basketball
Yes.
because of your program and system.
Yes.
That's amazing. And the impact on those kids when you look back 10, 15 or 8 years later, what's that like when you see them now as young adults?
As a coach, my legacy is not my wins and losses. My legacy is based on the success of my former players.
Amazing.
And guys that have been in my program. And, as most recently, one of my former players, Reggie Cameron, who went to Georgetown, played overseas, did a graduate assistant job at St. Joe's, is now works for the New York Knicks.
Wow.
And to see my coaching family tree start to evolve, that means I'm getting old, and I think we've done something right. J.R. Lynch is a young man who played for us, was at the University of Hartford, got an MBA and an undergraduate degree in 4 years.
Wow.
And now is working on his second graduate assistant job at UConn. So he's coaching also.
That's amazing. So let me ask you, do you get like texts like every month or every other day during the season or like before the season from players that are like just checking you out and rooting you on, and any messages of like love and hope that comes up from time to time?
We're constantly, with text messaging.
Yeah.
It's an easy way to communicate. I'm constantly on the phone. I start making phone calls at 6:30. 7 o'clock in the morning to make sure my former players who are now assistants are working.
Wow.
And we have a really, really good relationship. And the transition of a relationship from player to coach is now player to friend and mentor, which is a unique thing because, you were always the bad guy as a coach. Now you become the good guy, and it's almost like more of a friendship with your player than it is as the coach.
That's amazing. It's funny because I was an average basketball player, right? But I look at what basketball did for me in business, and it's been amazing. Just the habits, the rituals, and the consistency and the repetition, and shooting jump shots every day, working on your dribbling, and all that stuff that could make you a better player. And then as you level up and play against better competition, you could rise. Right. Something you're very familiar with. Well, the same thing happens in business, and the reason why I'm bringing that up because at the end of the day, I had the work ethic of a basketball player, right? But then when it came into being able to bring that into business, I was able to, maybe I wasn't the most athletic basketball player, but in business I was able to translate that, right? One leg at a time, waking up at 6:30, the whole 9 yards. Habits and rituals. What are some of your habits and rituals that stand out?
Well, it's interesting because as a young person, and I would say in my teens and 20s, I was not disciplined. And then once I found my niche of what I wanted to do with coaching and teaching, because that's not how my journey started, I am extremely disciplined, and I think any person who's successful has to be self-disciplined.
Yeah.
You know, my day starts at 4:30 in the morning, and it's probably more of my neurosis of not being able to sleep and not being able to turn my mind off. But I'm always planning. I'm always trying to be 15 steps ahead. And my routines are the same routine. And the bad thing about having routines is when the routine is broken, how do you respond to that broken routine?
Yeah.
But I'm very, very, very organized. I'm extremely disciplined. And that works for me. It doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, especially when you're dealing, because it sounds like to me you're talking about dealing with certainty. Right? And when an uncertainty creeps in, because it creeps in all the time, that's life, how quick can you respond to that and add that into the overall mix, right? And I'm sure as you go through your Rolodex of uncertainty moments in life, you could figure out sooner than later how quick you were able to respond to it. So if in fact it pops up again, you know how to handle that situation. Because just like in sales, there's always 6 reasons why people say no. First and foremost, they got to know you care, right? But in sales, people say no for all different reasons, which is really default no, because they're not ready to say yes yet. We're always being sold something every day of the week. At the end of the day, when you deal with uncertainty, what are some of your response mechanisms when it pops up? It could pop up in a game, could be an injury, could be something that comes out of nowhere. How do you talk your way through that in your own mind?
I think that as we get wiser, okay, we'll use that terminology, wiser.
Yes.
You become comfortable being uncomfortable.
Yes.
And what was a bad thing with COVID, the positive that came out of for me was that I was able to do things differently and have the same type of success. And it was almost like you got to take a step back again to take forward. And COVID forced me to do that. It's very, very difficult to force yourself to do something. Yeah. So we were uncomfortable during a pandemic. Yeah. And how did we pivot to try to be successful and reboot to see what it's going to be like on the back end?
Can anything stand out specifically?
I'm from a coaching standpoint, dealing with the kids differently, being a little more in tune to what they're going through and trying to walk in their shoes, I think was a really important thing. And it's, again, as you learn, as we get wiser, the wins and losses are going to take care of themselves. What do you want the end game to be? Yeah. Whatever your end game to be. And I see things a lot different coming out of COVID than I did going into COVID.
So it sounds like COVID for you was like an unbelievable knowledge increase and a way to look at things going forward. You made it sounds like what I'm hearing is there were some major shifts for you.
Yeah, and I think just to be able to reflect on what you do or what you've done or how you did it and what worked or you thought worked. Wow. And obviously mental health is a huge topic today, going into COVID and coming out of COVID. I have to be more in tune to what my players are going through.
Yeah.
Because we all come from different places, but we all have a lot of the same issues.
Yeah.
So it got me to see things a little differently. For example, in practice, I would never play music. We play music to loosen the guys up before practice, stuff like that, and let them. I'm uncomfortable with that, but I want them to be comfortable with it. So I've adjusted my approach to what we're doing, and the hour conversations after a game. We don't address wins and losses after a game. Guys, be careful going home, be safe, grab something to eat, and we'll deal with it the next day when you have 24 hours to kind of think and play things over. So
that's a good point. Thanks for sharing. Because I remember with COVID, I really got to know my wife and kids.
Right.
I thought I knew them, but I really didn't know them. You know what I mean? On the level of a family. I knew them each individually, but in the dynamic, us being together every day, so it forced me to look at things.
Right. And you were forced. And you were forced to do it because you couldn't go anywhere else.
Exactly. So I'm interested in a tough loss in 2015. What would the locker room sound like versus a tough loss in 2000? That's a great dynamic, and I love to play with that a little bit.
I think the loss after in 2015, the paint would probably be peeling off the walls, where I'm a lot more in tune to me, in tune to my surroundings, in tune to the needs of kids. As high level athletes, than I would be in 2015.
Got it.
You know?
Got it. So during COVID, when you reflected on your history of success up until that point,
Right.
and you discovered what you felt was working, but you also discovered, I'm assuming, what wasn't working. What were those trajectory increases or decreases, those plus or minuses?
You always want to, you want it reiterated to what you're doing is good or right, or you're doing it for the right reasons. And I think one of the things that I did is that I was in touch with my former players. We'd Zoom guys that I had coached, what they're doing now, what they're going through in business. You know, there was a lot of things with social justice going on,
Oh, yes.
and I wanted to make sure that they can use me being from a different place than they're from as a venue to, coach, I need your help.
And they could trust you.
Yeah, and they could trust me.
Yeah.
And it was very, very interesting, some of their insights on what was going on, what they felt coming into school, how they perceived me, how I really was.
Wow.
And you know, the thing that they kept on saying is that I was real.
Yeah.
You know, and I asked them, did you ever feel racism at Hudson Catholic? Did you ever
Great
feel
question.
that I was, you know, that there was any underlines or any undertones from anyone in the building?
Yeah.
And they said, absolutely not. You know, which is, I think, a special thing about the place that I work because of the diversity that's in place.
Yeah.
And I come from a different place. Like, I grew up in the suburbs. So, you know, and my entire life has been an urban educator. And I'm very, very comfortable with my mission as an educator in today's society.
That's amazing. And folks, we're going to step into Hudson Catholic in a second, but I want to go back in time. And if we could just kind of go through the early years of what shaped you to who you became today. You know, you grew up in Verona, New Jersey, and you had some siblings. And what did those early years look like?
I'm one of you know, my mom and dad. I have two brothers. I have a brother and a sister. I was not a good student in high school. I graduated in the class of '85.
What was the neighborhood like?
It was suburban America.
Yeah.
You know, my community was not diverse at all. And I did not go to school to be a teacher. You know, we were talking about this before. The ongoing joke when I graduated from the College of New Jersey in 1990 was, "Are you sure you're getting your degree?" And, you know, I have no problem telling you that I graduated college with a 2.02 GPA.
Love it.
And then after working on Wall Street for 2 years and 2.5 years and passing your Series 7 and passing my 63,
Wow.
This isn't for me. I pivoted and went to work for my father in sales, and we fought every day. And
What kind of business?
He was a manufacturer's representative.
Got it.
So it was me and him, you know, in the office every day, and we fought every day. And it was just, you know, family businesses are difficult.
Yeah.
And then I started coaching young people, and
Now, why? What happened?
it was a release for me to go to practice and be in tune with athletics.
Did you play high school ball?
I played every sport, but I played college baseball.
Really?
Yeah. So
Wow. That's
and
interesting.
I got into this whole profession. You know, if you went back to talk to my teachers in '84 and '85 and said that I was the educator I am today, they would have laughed. My mom probably would have laughed, and she's extremely proud of this, of my accomplishments. But I then decided to go back to school.
Yeah.
And the same person that was a 2.02 GPA and with a degree in political science and marketing got his post-baccalaureate teaching certification in social studies at a 3.5.
You were ready to study.
Yeah, and then that same person got his teacher of the handicap certification and had a 3.8.
Amazing.
You know, I remember being, like it was yesterday, being in a graduate class with all women, and I was one of two guys in the class getting my teacher of the handicap certification, and the teacher saying we only had one A on this paper, and it was a class I took on functioning child study team, and I wrote this paper, and she called out my name. I was like, the ladies looked at me because I sat in the back. I didn't say 2 words, but once I figured out what I wanted to do, I was just full steam ahead.
Yeah, Brendan Brouchard wrote a book called High Performing Habits, and he talks about, there's 6 of them, but one of them is clarity, and it sounds like that's what you're talking about. You were clear, you knew what you wanted to do, and you were on a path. And at that point, were you already coaching basketball or just coaching in general?
So I was coaching. My first basketball coaching job was a 7th and 8th grade suburban team in Verona. And then I went on to Marist High School and worked for Mike Leonardo.
I know Mike, I played against Mike.
Yeah.
What year were you with Mike?
So that's probably 25, 26 years ago.
Yeah, so I was 89 when we played against them.
I coached John Giraldo.
Okay,
I coached
so those after,
Alvaro Mejia.
Yeah.
James Felton.
But how do you go as a grammar school 7th and 8th grade basketball coach that played baseball in college to then be at that point, one of the best schools in the state? Marist.
Right.
Leonardo was a great coach, to become his assistant. How does that?
I mean, through a personal friend of mine introduced me to him, and I was basically doing a lot of the grunt work and driving guys from point A to point B. But that 2 years with him was like going to graduate school in basketball.
For all you entrepreneurs, and I talk about this all the time, this is real important. Proximity is power. And when you play the game of proximity, you don't make a lot of money and you work a lot of hours. It's the arduous process of your success track. And that means, what really Coach was talking about when he was working with Coach Leonardo was he was bringing it every day, in season, off season, committed to excellence, and was able to learn, watch, maybe be able to figure out when he gets on his track, which, by the way, his track record since then has been incredible, as we highlighted at the beginning. This is what we're talking about when it becomes the entrepreneur business and being able to have proximity, great teachers, and then being able to take it yourself and then run with it afterwards.
Right.
And you were at Marist.
So I was at Marist for 2 years, and then I worked for Roger Blinn at St. Peter's University. It was called the restricted earnings coach. I was teaching special ed at the Essex County Vocational School, and I was commuting to Jersey City after school at the end of the day. And then a coaching position opened at Bloomfield Tech. I took the position, and then I was.
So let's go slow, because this is where the magic started, right? I mean,
yeah.
So now you were your own boss, at least as the basketball coach, right?
Yes.
You had a philosophy, I'm sure, when it came to basketball, and what was that? I mean, New Jersey is a very tough place to achieve what you achieved. How did you stand out?
We had some barriers to break down because we were a vocational school and everyone didn't understand what vocational schools were. And kids come to the school and they think they're going to, the hard shops were auto mechanic or machine shop. And, our kids were taking the softer shops, which was like Cisco networking and computer programming, and they qualified for scholarships. And
still an unlikely basketball powerhouse, correct?
Yeah.
Like, we're not talking about a school that's meant to be a basketball powerhouse.
No. They had some success prior to me getting there, but when we got there, it just went in a totally different direction. I think we won 4 state championships there. Group 1, played in the Tournament of Champions.
Can you explain group, like what that means here in New Jersey versus Group 4?
So the group levels are, Group 1 is the smallest group level, and Group 4 is the biggest group level, and then there's Parochial A or non-public A now, and Parochial B and non-public B now, which are the small private schools and the large private schools. And I coached against Coach Hurley in the finals, in my first Tournament Champions finals, and we lost that game. And then 2 years later, I coached against Kevin Boyle, who's now at Montverde.
Wow.
Was at the Patrick School, and we had a great group of guys. We had tough kids from Newark, all Essex County guys, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And you're building it as you go along, but there was an obsession that went along with it. And one of the conversations I was having with my players the other day, we had a workout, was the fear of failure every day when I walk into that building is why I'm somewhat successful. It's still, at my age, with my background and what I've done, and I don't really talk about it unless I'm asked about it, like, I still feel I'm going to fail every day I walk in the building. So rather than fail, I got to find a way to get through the day.
So as you're coming up, right, you're making state championships,
right,
and then you're coming across the likes of the great Bob Hurley and the great Kevin Boyle. Are they rooting for you at that point? Are they like big brothers? Are they giving you what's the politics? I'm just curious for myself.
There's a lot of politics involved with it.
But when you're coming up, when you're not a threat yet. Versus when
obviously
you are.
My relationship with Danny and him being at St. Benedict's and me being at Bloomfield Tech.
That was at the same time?
Yeah, similar times.
I didn't realize that.
His dad sets the gold standard.
Yeah.
So you're always trying to chase and chase and chase and chase and chase because you want your program to run like they run their program. And then you're fine until you become good.
That's what I'm saying. Like when you're coming up, like they put their arm around you. They.
Well, I've now that I guess a veteran coach. Like I like mentoring.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you a question. When you get good, do you still get invited to the parties when you're coming up?
No, not necessarily. And you know the thing is, I coached against Coach Hurley his last game and beat him in the sectional state championship, and you know. That was very difficult.
Did they have to put a barricade around Hudson Catholic when that happened?
That was very difficult. That was very difficult because I have the utmost respect for him, and you know, and remember, my former head coach, Coach Leonardo, is a disciple of Coach Hurley, so it's kind of like we're part of the same family, I guess. You know, and I learned, and I guess as an assistant coach, you learn what to do and what not to do, and how they make mistakes and what their strengths are, and. You know what happens when you become a head coach.
You're like the younger brother. You get to see, like you know, all the things when you were in there.
You know, myself, Darren Savino, we're on the same staff. Darren's at UCLA as the associate head coach. And
so he's there. He was at Cincinnati.
He was at Cincinnati. Now he's the associate head coach at UCLA. So, you know, we talk a lot, and just you know, seeing where we were and where we're at, you know, is we're wiser now.
It's amazing. Yes. You've made a lot of mistakes you don't have to make anymore. Yes. Totally get it. So the great Hudson Catholic school that's dear to my heart. What got you there? What made you want to go from Brooklyn Tech? Was that the transition?
Bloomfield Tech.
I'm sorry, Bloomfield Tech. Was that the transition, or was there something in between?
My father had gotten sick. He was diagnosed with kidney disease, and I was running around and helping my mom take care of my dad, and there was a lot of things going on, so I took a year off.
Really?
Yeah, and Bloomfield Tech was really disappointed because we've had some great years. Kids were going to school, the scholarships the kids were getting, and you know, my superintendent at the time, Dr. Pinella, said to me, just do it 75%. And just do it 65%. I said, I can't. I can't because I'm going to cheat myself, but more importantly, I'm going to cheat my players. And I said, I need to do this. And so I left basketball for a year. I just taught, and I started to figure out how to help my mom take care of my dad and get my father situated. And then Rob Stern, who was the athletic director at the time at Hudson Catholic, called me. I interviewed a number of times because I was unsure. I wanted to get back into it, and I was unsure.
You were going into a program that didn't have a hit. Well, the history ended in the 70s.
The school was going to close prior to me coming there.
That was like a risky move.
You had Mike Kelly at St. Peter's Prep who was getting it done, Kevin Boyle, Danny Hurley at St. Benedict's, Kevin being at the Patrick School, and Coach Hurley down the street, and you're going into a Lion's Den. And
I mean, that's a courageous, that's a phenomenal move, actually.
And I took the job. And
so when you take a job, is there certain things that roles, responsibilities, don't get in my way, do those conversations take place in those interviews?
Well, you know, one of the things, you know, I remember specifically having a conversation. So at the time it was myself, Terry Matthews, Rob Stern, and Father Hall. We had dinner, and I said, listen, you know, I came by the school. I looked at the school. I said, there's a lot of work that has to be done. If we're going to build this program, we got to do things the right way. And I noticed there's a lot of blank banners on the wall. I said, I can't promise you that I can fill those banners with state championships or county championships. But what I will guarantee you is our kids will be able to go to college because they can play basketball or get into a better school because they have a skill set. And it's exactly what we've done. And the wins and losses have taken care of itself. And then, you know, me leaving public school special education teacher, I was in advancement the first year at Hudson Catholic. And then after that, I became the athletic director.
Yeah, so, but if we go to Hudson versus where you were,
right?
You know, and there's no recruiting at all in this world, either one of those worlds.
Right.
But more kids, I would assume, went to Bloomfield Tech.
Yeah, well, you know,
based on the size of the school,
and Bloomfield Tech is free, and Hudson Catholic has a price tag, so it's a little different.
So the increase of success was even higher,
right?
Because of everything that we just talked about.
And think about the schools. You have St. Peter's Prep, St. Anthony's,
within
Patrick
a mile
School,
of each.
St. Benedict's were all very, very
Yes,
close,
that's
on top
unbelievable.
of each other. And
So what was your first year at Hudson?
2009, 2010.
And you won your first county championship in 12 or 13? I think it was 13.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's amazing too.
Yeah.
In that,
And then we won, I think, 7 straight. And
Yeah.
then we just got our 8th this past year.
Yeah. And that was against
Prep.
Yeah, big. Yeah. So when it goes, when you look at not only a coach, but there's something about you and something about Hudson Catholic that you care about all the kids. You
Right.
for some, let's talk about a mission drive. You have a desire to help kids.
Yeah.
What is that? Where did that come from?
What
is it that you see that you want to do that?
For lack of a better word, I didn't have a great high school experience from a standpoint of someone being vested in me. So once I became an educator,
Wow.
I invested a lot of my time in other people and my student athletes, not only with my program, but my athletic department. Like, I'm kind of like the person that when the kids want to know about school, they come to me and say, well, try this place, try that place, talk to your coach about this. Are we doing this? And,
Amazing.
And we've done a really, really good job. We had no female sports at our school
Yeah.
when I became athletic director. And with Terry Matthews and myself, we started a female athletic department. And top to bottom, I think we have one of the best athletic departments in the county. I remember as clear as day walking into my first AD meeting, and Mike Pearson at Bayonne and Rich Hansen, who are 2 friends and mentors of mine at St. Peter's Prep. They laughed at me and said, "What are you doing this for?" And I did it. And the same person that they laughed at is now the president of the league.
Yep.
Sits on state level, stuff, and we become friends and we laugh about it. But it's become a labor of love. It really has. And I've had opportunities to do some other things, and for whatever reason, I just haven't been comfortable pulling the trigger.
What it sounds like to me is, and folks out there, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you'll get 9-to-5 results.
Right.
I don't think you have a 9-to-5 job.
It doesn't end.
Yeah. And I also think that I'm going to equate it to like a franchise, but like the upper management, you guys seem to work well together. And I think you and Terry have
sometimes.
How if you could talk about that relationship
Terry,
and how it helps the school.
Mr. Matthews and I went from being, he's my boss now. We kind of went from being on the same level and kind of building this thing together with Mr. Garabell, who retired about 2 years ago, and to now Terry's my boss, so I have to toe the line with certain stuff. But I think we both have what's best for the kids in the school.
You guys are aligned on like the mission. Yeah. And what does it look like for you for the next 3 to 5 years? Like where do you see yourself? Not so much like physically, but as far as like the stuff that you're building and your purpose in life and how to help the kids and the school and everything else.
I think from my standpoint, my platform as the coach is no longer the coach anymore. It's like kind of one of the focal points of the school, and the school relies on me for a lot of different things. And there's some things that I'd like to see different at the school from a standpoint of our next roll of upgrades, our capital campaign.
Let's talk about that.
I think we need to invest in our theater arts program, our performing arts program, our science labs. With technology, the way things are right now, things are changing so quickly that you got to stay with the times, and having more resources, our academic platform, our profile, our athletic profile, our school profile has increased tremendously.
Amazing.
We have to do a better job of getting our word out there about all the good things that are happening at our school, which, you have to, that's what we do well. What we don't do well is get the word out. And we have to figure out a better way to get our word out.
Yeah. And because I think that the word would be what the school really stands for. And I think it's really being able to take talented kids, take that piece of clay and really mold it into something special.
Right.
Not necessarily the underdog kid, right? But the kid that's very talented that found a place where whether it's basketball, whether it's football, whether it's computer science, whether it's the arts. I'm sure there's a lot of skills there with kids that tap it into the ability to act and do plays. Like they could really, really take a major step forward in that space. Right. And if you look at, where it's located centrally in New Jersey or Jersey City, what is that, if in an urban area, what does that actually mean to folks that really don't understand where we're from, but how important that location is?
I think that Jersey City has a stigma of being something that it's not. You have to go to Jersey City and see the community, see the restaurants, and see how the building and how things are just the renaissance of the city. Yeah. The project going on at Liberty State Park.
Yeah, it's just built. Yeah.
Which is tremendous, and and what is our function as an institution in our community?
Yeah.
Which is we provide an opportunity for the kids in our community to get a safe and very good education. I think it's important.
And you talk about, because the academics are there, and
right.
You talk about all your players, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3. What about kids outside of basketball? Are they playing sports at the next level as well?
Yeah, I mean, we have a female soccer player that's on scholarship at St. Peter's, and we have a young lady who is at Villanova as
Wow.
point guard who graduated from Hudson Catholic and St. Peter's University with an associate's degree, and will be working towards her master's degree as a junior at Villanova because she was in our dual enrollment program. We have about 30 kids that are in the dual enrollment program where you can graduate with a associate's degree from St. Peter's upon graduation of Hudson Catholic, and we have an ACES program. So you have, a university right down the street. You have New Jersey City University that we have a media arts program that we're in conjunction with. So educating kids differently and kind of moving their trajectory with their education quicker so they can get more of an education.
It's amazing, Nick. And let me ask you, do you mentor other coaches? Do you mentor kids? Do you mentor people as in the game of life? or are you just constantly just mentoring people?
I think it's more the student athletes. I'm now being a veteran coach. I have a responsibility. We had turnover in our athletic department. I have a younger staff I have 4 first-time head coaches that I hired this year. And that's been challenging in a good way. It's been challenging in a bad way because you kind of get set in your ways, but they're very, very receptive to, what I've done. And, my friends like to call me the voice of reason, and I could be volatile and excited sometimes with things, but you have to, when you're dealing with people, always try to walk in their shoes.
Yeah.
And try to, kind of stand outside yourself to look down on the situation to try to help people out through things.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And when you think about kids that are going to come to Hudson or, St. Peter's or other schools, what is the difference between Hudson? What's the difference between St. Peter's or, St. Anthony's no longer exists, but just in general, not good, bad, just the difference between Mercedes and BMW?
The interesting thing is, I went to public high school. I worked in public high school, and I had some great kids. When I walked into Hudson Catholic, something was different. Yeah. And I still haven't been able to wrap my head around what's different. It's the kids.
Yeah.
We have just a great, as adults, as administrators, as teachers, you could sell the school.
Yeah.
But the kids are the people that are selling the school.
Yeah.
And we have a really, really good student population that are vested in each other. And it's a regional school, so kids are kind of coming from all over the place. And when kids come to meet with me, regardless of what sport they play, to talk about our school, I want them to be vested in the school. Just don't be Elijah Gertrude or Tahad Pettiford, the basketball player. Be Elijah Gertrude, Tahad Pettiford, the student, and go see your friends in the play. Go to the football game, go to the volleyball game, go to the dance, be part of the community.
Yeah.
And I think our community is very, very strong.
Yeah, and I think what you just said is what builds alumni, right? That right there is incredible, and I think that message probably doesn't get out a lot in a lot of other schools the way you just made it sound, where they may not think on that level. But I think that alumni is always the key in anything you do, and you always want people to give back to the school, even if they didn't go there. Like for me, listen, I went to St. Peter's Prep. My prep experience taught me a lot of things. I choose to bring, any of the success I've had monetarily to Hudson because I feel like that, believe it or not, the way they operate kind of speaks my language, the underdog. Maybe someone that didn't have that intentionality that you talked about in high school. You didn't have that, someone that was there. I didn't have that either. I had good parents, good siblings, good family, but I didn't have that at the school level, what you're talking about. And I think that's important for all kids. And you never know who's going to come out 10, 20, 30 years later out of it. You know what I mean? So to be able to send that message across the board is pretty incredible. So when I think of you and your legacy, which is incredible, and I'm honored to be here just having this interview with you, Coach, when it's all said and done, what are you doing all this for?
Probably because it's the only thing I know.
Yeah.
And I feel, we talk about my high school years, and you don't realize this till you're 10, 20 years removed. I was insecure.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what my insecurities were, but looking back on it, I was insecure. So these kids,
when you say it,
I see insecurity. I see self-doubt. I see them going through things, and I think my strength as I'm not easy to deal with.
Sure.
But I'm an advocate.
Yeah, I don't think anyone that has high level success is easy to deal with.
Yeah, and I think I'm an advocate for my school. I'm an advocate for the kids in the school, but most importantly, I'm an advocate for my players. And you think that the kids are supposed to be better off because they've dealt with you, when in fact I'm a better coach because I've had the opportunity to be with them.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
It makes a lot of sense. And not only a better X&O coach, but probably a better life. Right. And you would probably, believe it or not, be an excellent business coach. Right. Because it's not normal to be so successful in two different high schools. There's nothing normal about that. That doesn't show up every day at the front door like, hey, here's success. You have to go and get it. So I'm assuming, and I don't know this, but I'm assuming everything you do and have has formulas to it. There's a process to it. There's a mechanism to it. There's a commonality on what you do that's achieved success that constantly innovates and constantly evolves.
And I don't have it written down.
No, I know.
You just do it, and you want things a certain way, and there's a lot of OCD tendencies that are involved with doing what I do, and drive yourself crazy, drive the people around you crazy. But you just do it. It's interesting. Like I had to put a resume together, and I didn't realize what I did until you start putting it down on paper, and then you look at it and you say, "Wow, I have a career. I had a career."
That's why the great ones tell you to write stuff down.
Yeah. So I think, again, I've been a lot more reflective and a lot more analytical with seeing things and listening to other people that I might not have had interest in. It doesn't have to be in business or in athletics why is this person successful at what they do? Or why is this person successful? And, with the podcasts and hearing different things and hearing different messages, it's interesting what people's perspective is and how your perspective is similar. You just don't necessarily have a forum to get it out there. And
once you find out that you can get it out there, it's like a study group. It's just like when you're around, some of the best coaches, you're like, oh yeah, I did do that right. And then when you see them do it and they share some of their secret sauce, it helps you elevate. Right. That's been my experience in my business. So, any message out there that you want to send to kids that are practicing the game of basketball and kids that the gift of basketball, what it could do in the game of life and how the doors could open up. If you're a coach to all the high school kids in the country right now, what would you tell them? Just keep working hard. Keep your circle tight. You got to be around people, that you trust. And it's hard work. And you might not gain the benefits
from the skill that you're practicing on, in basketball. But eventually, again, because Reggie Cameron played basketball, he has a degree from Georgetown and a graduate degree from St. Joe's. Gerald Lynch has a degree from Hartford and an MBA from Hartford, because he worked that hard on his skill of basketball to work that hard in the classroom to have those benefits of being educated.
Amazing. Way. Player 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12, right? How important is that kid, boy, girl, to the team and to the coach, and how you coach them up and how they could survive in a game of life after basketball?
Extremely. Some of my favorite guys that I've coached, I had a player a couple years back who actually has coached some of my guys in our team in events. Will Brown came to practice every single day, and his work ethic was on another level. And he happened to be playing behind 2 McDonald's All-Americans and the 2 guys that were going to high-level Division I. But it never changed his work ethic, knowing that he wasn't going to be that, but he's going to be successful in something else because he was disciplined to come in and work his tail off every single day.
And what's he doing now? A couple years later?
He's still in school, right
College?
now. Yeah, he's still in school right now. And, with COVID, he bounced around a little bit. But I know whatever he decides, and he wants to get an education in teaching and coaching, I think his message will be valuable to the young people that he's going to be dealing with down the road if he becomes an educator.
Yeah. Well, any final thoughts that's just present to you that you just want to share with anyone that's listening right now?
I appreciate the opportunity to have a forum, and I think during, we're coming out of difficult times, and I think it's not easy for a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old student athlete to grow up in today's society with social media. You got to find a way to be true to yourself and get rid of the noise.
Yeah, thank you for that. And one of the things, if it was Christmas morning, that I would wish for, you have a really good team this year.
Yes.
And what I would like personally for me is to be able to document that journey, and maybe once a month do like a podcast about, where we're at in the season, starting from late December, late January, late February, late March, and put all that together and send the message out to the world.
Well, the interesting thing
that would be my wish.
This is coming full circle for me, and I've been doing this long enough. Forget about how good we're going to be. The people in my program right now, the culture that the kids have created in my program are on another level, and I think you would enjoy seeing them more than basketball.
Yeah. Absolutely,
because 100%. Basketball is just something they're doing. It's not who they are.
I love the human side.
Yeah. There's a big human side, especially coming from some of the places that our kids come from, and they pull up their bootstraps and go to work every day, which is a credit to them, and that's the kind of people I want to be around.
Yeah. Well, I can't thank you enough today, Nick.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it, Coach.
I appreciate it.
Look forward to some more stuff, and excited to watching the season and getting to know everybody and just seeing what happens. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.